Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you, whichever time zone you are in. I'm thrilled to know that the house is expected to be full today with so many people from around the world expressing interest to join. This is so encouraging. Women as leaders of change, such an exciting topic. Let me share with you that over my years of advocacy work with IDF, I've seen so many powerful women leading as diabetes advocates, changing what it means to live with diabetes throughout the globe. As leader of the Living with Diabetes stream for the World Diabetes Congress 2022, it was actually hard to select from amongst the powerful women and keep a gender balance. I'm not gender biased, mind you, but women are very passionate, very strong advocates, maybe because of the very trait they own. Uh, our brains, as we were just discussing before we started this, our brains are wired in a mesh connection. We connect feelings, words, emotions, and actions simultaneously to make a difference. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Sana Ajmal. I'm joining you from Islamabad, Pakistan. I live with type 1 diabetes, and I'm one of the oldest young leader in diabetes of the Wildy program. Young at heart, sorry. I was trained in the first part of the program in 2011, and that's what I will always remember as a life-changing experience for me. I'm going to be the moderator for the webinar today. And before we go on to the very interesting roundtable discussion with an amazingly powerful panel of women advocates, let's learn a little more about the Wildy program and the resource that IDF is launching today. So the Wildy program, the Young Leaders in Diabetes, was established by IDF in the late 2011. With the goal to help empower young people living with diabetes to take up leadership roles. The Wildy program trained us as advocates to make a difference for ourselves and others. And its origins lie back in the IDF Youth Ambassadors program, which was a one-week training with youth in Cape Town in 2006. But the first face-to-face Wildy training was held in 2011 in Dubai. And I remember that training very well. Again, I would say as a life-changing experience for me. Today, this year, in 2021, we completed a decade of the program. And the objectives of the program has achieved is to raise awareness, to provide online and face-to-face training to diabetes advocates and leaders of tomorrow, and to support and strengthen the IDF regions and the member associations by building a global movement for diabetes and developing Wildy projects to address the needs of the people with diabetes at the local or national level. And I can vouch for so many projects and so many campaigns and so many initiatives that have taken place just because these young leaders, this young blood, this passionate blood was trained at these trainings. Let's review a decade of the Young Leaders program. The first training was held in Dubai in 2011. The second one being at Melbourne. Then we went to Vancouver in 2015, then in Abu Dhabi and in 2017, and then in Busan, Korea in 2019. And 5 Wildy cohorts have trained 260 participants from 105 different countries. And I have seen so many of them do so much in the diabetes world. Next slide, please. These are some of the notes from feedback from some of the young leaders who were being trained in Korea, Busan in 2019. And you can all see some powerful words like bigger family, inspiration, strength, motivation, driving force. Thank you for everything, getting to know such wonderful people. The friends that we actually made at this program have stuck with us for so long. And I think I have a family everywhere in the world now because of this program. Next slide. So today, IDF is launching a very important resource, which of course the young leaders will benefit through, but then there is also, this resource has also been developed with the help of some of the testimonials, some of the very powerful insights from the Young Leaders in Diabetes program. And I'm sure that this data-driven advocacy guide will help anyone who wants to advocate using data as a tool. This new IDF resource can be downloaded from the link that is shared here in the here on the slide, IDF Data-Driven Advocacy. It includes advice and tips to help advocates find, interpret, and use data for effective diabetes advocacy. This is something that is so important because when we were advocating, we always found that the data can actually really make a difference when you talk to policymakers, when you talk when you're trying to advocate for a cause. The target audience can be diabetes and health advocates who want to learn more about how data can take their advocacy work to the next level. And it features some advocacy tips from the members of the IDF Young Leaders in Diabetes program and Blue Circle Voices networks, which will, of course, be very useful practical advice. So I would urge you all to please go to this website and download the resource and take support from this. Next slide, please. Now, I hope you're all ready for this really exciting roundtable discussion with our powerful panel of advocates. But for that, I will hand over to Kaja. Kaja, can you please go to the next slide? Kaja is from IDF Young Leaders in Diabetes, is an IDF Young Leaders in Diabetes alumnus, and she's from Sweden. She has also served as the president of the program. And over to you, Kaja. I think almost more than half the world knows you already. So, and I'm sure a lot of advocates already know you, but please, the floor is all yours.
And I'm sure if they don't know me, they know you, because thank you, Sana. It's an honor to be here with you today, an incredibly powerful advocate. So thank you for the introduction. So my name is Kaisa, and I have the honor of moderating this panel discussion here today with these incredible advocates. I have been living with diabetes for 20 years, and like Sana said, I'm a graduate of the YLD program. So I'm incredibly honored to be here to celebrate both the 10 years of the YLD program and to celebrate women living with diabetes and female advocates. During my decade or so of working in diabetes advocacy, I've met so many incredible, strong, powerful, humble, vulnerable, unapologetic advocates. And I am so incredibly proud that 4 of them have joined us here today. And I know from seeing the list of attendees that there are many of you listening in as well. These are our YLD trainees, mentors, and alumni. And like Sana said, they're very much women of change. So I'm proud to introduce our first panelist, Jyotsna. She's a YLD trainee, and I think many of you know her as a very active diabetes and mental health advocate from India. Jo has made a tremendous impact and promoted a lot of change through her advocacy. She's a certified diabetes educator. She counsels young patients with diabetes, and she works also with her own community in India, Diabetes in Style. She's also worked with a number of international organizations including IDF, League of Diathletes, WHO, and also NCD Alliance. And currently, Jo, you're the YLD representative-elect for Southeast Asia, is that correct? Yeah. And you're also working on a grassroots project called Ignite in India. I don't know if we'll have a chance to talk about that, but please otherwise look it up. Our second panelist is Paula. Paula is originally from Costa Rica. I think many of you know her. She lives now in the UK. We talked the other day about what's worse, the food or the weather. So she'll have to answer that question herself. Paula is a pediatric diabetes dietitian and works today with children and adolescents with diabetes. And apart from that, how she has time, I don't know, but apart from that, she's also heavily involved in diabetes advocacy. She helped organize one of the first camps for diabetes in Costa Rica. She's spoken at numerous events, including an IDF event at the World Health Assembly. She develops education projects for schools in Costa Rica, and is also a trustee for a diabetes charity in the UK. So thank you so much, Paula, for being here. It's an honor. Our third panelist is Nurian. Nurian is a YLD trainee and a very passionate advocate. She started volunteering already at the age of 12. Can we see you? Can you turn on your camera? I don't know if oh, thank you. Wonderful. You started very young and you've kept up your interest and your engagement in social issues since then. And since your diabetes diagnosis, you've dedicated yourself to researching diabetes, which I think is really fascinating. And today, Nurian works as a full-time lecturer at the University of Aruba and as a researcher for your local diabetes foundation in Aruba. And you also run a social entrepreneurship business, which hopefully you'll have a chance to talk a little bit more about. And fun fact, I think, which we talked a lot about in our briefing, I think fun fact is that you represented Aruba in the Miss World pageant 4 years ago, and your advocacy area was health, especially for children and youngsters. So hopefully we'll hear more about that. Thank you for joining us today. And our last panelist is Sana. And Sana introduced herself very briefly and very humbly, I should say, in the beginning. So I just want to say that it's an honor to have Dr. Sana here today. She's a very seasoned diabetes advocate and has worked with a number of international organizations, including IDF. And she didn't mention it, but she used to be the vice president and president-elect of the YLD program. So it's an honor to have you here today, Sana. You've
Lovely to have.
And can everyone turn on their cameras, please? I should say that if you have any questions, feel free to write them in the chat, and we'll try to either incorporate them into the discussion or do a roundup later of questions. I think the first question to start with really is, well, let's say this. Being a woman and living with diabetes has its ups and downs, right? But if we start maybe by focusing, what are some of the challenges that you see facing women today living with diabetes? Joe, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much for the question, and happy Women's Day to all of you. It's such an honor to be amongst here. The question, I am sure there are a lot of challenges that I can cite here, but the first and foremost challenge that I have faced as a woman living with diabetes in India is stigma and discrimination. Life is hard with diabetes, we all know, but it is more hard for women who are living with diabetes in India because of the societal pressures and mental health issues that we face on day-to-day basis. And there's lack of adequate, support from the society, from the healthcare professionals, and even more so from our own friends and loved ones sometimes, that gives us a very negative impact on our lives. And I think, I've had the chance to speak to a lot of young women living with diabetes from all over the world when I attended the Busan Summit. And I was taken aback when I heard similar issues that they all faced. And before that, I used to think, it's only women living in India who are having those issues, who are facing the devastating impact of stigma. But my whole perspective changed when I met other women from other countries who are also going through similar experiences, who are also facing those dire consequences of, having to hide your condition, to be able to feel, being part of the society, to be not being left out. Those were the kind of, feedback that I got from those women. And I think that really changed, and that gave me a lot of motivation. It changed my whole perspective of how I want to do this, what I want to do for the society, what I want to do for the people living with this condition. And that's when I decided that I really want to work on this real issue. By taking baby steps, I thought that I can really change it. I can, start working on this stigma. I know it's a big thing. In India, it's very difficult to change the mindset of people, and it's going to take a lot of time, but I'm up for it. And I really want to change those scenarios. And I really want women to feel more confident, more comfortable with this condition, and freely accept it and live a life that they deserve, and live a life happily without the fear of being judged, without the fear of embarrassment, and all of these issues that society puts upon them.
Thank you, and I have no doubt that you will create that change, Joe. I think it's interesting. It's just like you say, right? Women as a group face challenges, but then women with diabetes face double challenges, are part of two marginalized groups. And just like you, I was aware of the first, women as a group, but I think coming to the YLD program, it really opened my eyes to this idea of the double discrimination or the double marginalization of women with diabetes. Sana, do you have any input? I mean, you're from the same region as Joe. Do you have the same experience?
It's a similar experience here as well. And on top of what Joe said, I think women in our culture are, or I think almost everywhere in the world, are thought to have certain roles in the society, and that role includes having children, getting married off. Specifically for our region and our culture, this is very true. For some reason, and we all know that that's not true. Women with diabetes, of course, can get married and have children. I have two of my own, but then it's somehow the impression around the society is that they cannot do that. And probably I sometimes feel that it's because of all that negative image around diabetes that has been built with some of the prevention campaigns, or probably the positive examples have not been highlighted enough, and that's why this happens. But yes, I think there is more need to highlight all these examples. And in our region also, what happens is, for example, if there is a boy and there's a girl, let's say they have type 1 diabetes and they belong to an underprivileged family. If the family cannot afford insulin, and let's suppose they have two kids, one is a boy and one is a girl, and both are type 1, they'll probably provide it for the boy and also educate him, but not do the same for the girl, because the life of a male child is considered to be more important than a female child. And that's something that we really need to work on, with ensuring that these girls, they do get the education that they need, and they also do get the insulin and the test strips and all that medical care that they need properly.
Thank you, Sana. I completely agree. And I think long-term that also creates, again, a double issue, because if women are viewed as less worthy to marry, less worthy to start a family, they can have that role, but they're not educated. They don't have the same opportunities to get a job. It's a double punishment, right? Because what is your role in a society that values those things? So that's interesting. And Sana, I think you were one of the people that really opened up my eyes in the YLD program to the realities of women with diabetes and the discrimination they face. So thank you for that. Narianne, I'm curious to hear your input, being from Aruba.
Yes, good morning. For me, it's 9:19 in Aruba. It's very sunny and hot, like every day. I'm very honored to be here. Well, in my part, I will tell a little bit about my background. Many people don't know, I come from a Dominican family. I was born in Aruba and raised in Aruba. And many times women in this region, Caribbean, Latin America, that's in my case, we are taught and we grow up believing that we should always be strong. We should endure any challenge, any adversity that we encounter or confront. That means that sometimes we cannot be vulnerable. We are stigmatized, we are discriminated in different ways, as Joe mentioned, and as Sana mentioned as well, but we still have that factor of be strong and forget about you are allowed to be vulnerable, you are allowed to feel, and that is already a challenge for your condition as a woman with diabetes, because sometimes you do need that break, you do need that extra help, be it at work, your hobby, your social environment or family environment. And that's something that I truly believe that it's part of discrimination as well, because sometimes women don't get the attention that they need, depending on how you were educated, because there's a lack of belief that we need that support, emotional support in certain situation. And that's something that sometimes I miss. I'm happy that I was educated in that way to be strong and really be confident, believe in myself. But sometimes it hurts you instead of helps you. Be strong and identify your emotions and well-being.
I completely agree. I think there's this idea of, suffer in silence, that it's more noble to just stay silent and strong, right? Both for men and women, but in this case, women. And I think, just like you say, there's nothing wrong with being vulnerable. That's why I said in the beginning, right? all of you to me are vulnerable because you're talking about something that actually to society might be a weakness, and you're embracing it and you're living it and you're showing that it can also be a strength, right? And even if it's not a strength, it's something that you will, you know, dedicate your life to. So I completely agree. I think for everyone, showing that you're vulnerable, accepting help, asking for help, I think that's a huge strength. So I completely agree. Oh, this is going to take a while because I am so interested to hear everything you have to say. We have so many questions. We already have questions coming in the chat. Have you guys have mentioned this, but more specifically, have you guys suffered any direct discrimination or sexism being a woman with diabetes? Joe, do you want to start?
Yeah, I don't think there's any woman who has not gone through any of these feelings, and it's same the way for me as well. Like there have been a lot of instances where I felt discriminated, and one of the recent one is, you know, when I was getting married, I recently got married, and it was a pretty rough road for me, because to convince my partner's family, you know, it was a long road. We had to do, I mean, I had to do a lot of convincing, use all my convincing powers to make them understand that, you know, I'm an independent woman, I'm living my own life, I manage my diabetes very well myself, and I don't need a support system. My partner is definitely, will be my support system, but we are more or less going to be a support system for each other. He's not doing a favor by marrying me. And, you know, these are just some of the instances, and this is my personal, my own lived experience that I'm sharing, that how hard it is for a woman living in India or any part of the world to really, you know, to have their own will, to do what they want to do, and without being, you know, cited into a structure that society has created, the absolute rules that society has created that we are asked to follow, that we cannot marry, we cannot have kids. And, you know, a lot of women in India that I speak with, they are often advised by their relatives that they should, you know, find a guy who matches with what their condition is. Probably he must be disabled, or he should, you know, have any other condition or something, and that would be the perfect match for you. And I need to change that. I think that's a very, very disheartening thing to witness. And being faced, I myself faced this situation where I had to convince my partner's family to kind of accept me, you know, and that was a very, very difficult moment of my life, because I was feeling less. I was feeling that, you know, I'm less than any other woman. You know, I had to really work hard to feel accepted and not get rejected. And I think we all deserve to be loved and respected. And that's what we are demanding, and that's what we need as women living with diabetes.
You're a great example of that. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for being vulnerable with us. Sana, do you want to share your thoughts on this?
Well, Kasia, it's been a long time. So since it all started ending once I had my first child. So that's what I would say. But yeah, before that, it was just the same as Joe was telling. There were questions about whether she'll be able to get married, whether she'll be able to have kids, whether she'll be able to take care of her home at all with the health condition. But I think what really, really changed that, what really made a difference, is exactly what Joe was telling, standing up for yourself. So I stood up for myself, and I told everyone that I actually do not need a support system. I can be myself, and I can even live independently. So my parents, because they till some time they thought that I may never have a life partner, so they trained me to live like a man in this society of ours. And when I got married, my husband gave a comment saying that he sometimes feels that he has married a man. So that's how I was trained and to do things. So, but when I stood up for myself, when I told everyone that I can take care of myself, I'm doing well health-wise, etc., that's what changed everything. That's what changed the perspectives of people who were around me. And I think that's made the whole lot of difference for me personally.
That's interesting.
And I would love to say that Sana has been my biggest inspiration behind all this. I wouldn't have been able to fight this long battle if we wouldn't have met Sana and heard her story. So I think it's amazing how we all inspire each other and derive motivation, and you know, let's just keep going.
Definitely, I completely agree. I think it's interesting. I applaud your parents for raising you to be strong and independent. I think that's amazing. I think it's, in a way, I think not just specifically to this, but I think there's also something troubling that, you know, you would have to act like a man in order to be accepted, right? You would have to do the things that men do in order to be accepted, instead of it being, and this is not on you or anyone, but instead of it being a society where we appreciate the way that women are, right? And the way that women behave, no matter what it is, no matter if it fits on us within a stereotype of women. It's just, it's interesting, I think, that in so many things, women are encouraged to be more like men, right? Instead of it being maybe the other way around sometimes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's so perfectly true, because, well, in our society, for example, everything that's out of the household limits is something a man has to take responsibility for.
Yeah.
But when, like, you are perceived, if it's perceived that you will have to spend your life alone, then you actually need to learn how to do things that in general a man is supposed to do. And that's what they trained me for. We were 4 daughters. I don't have a brother, and my father used to task me for everything that has to be done, which he would probably have asked his son if there was one. And that's how it started happening.
So Paula, I'd love to hear from you. Do you feel that there is this specific image or you know, even stigma of how the life of a woman or a woman with diabetes is supposed to be?
Well, thank you very much for having me here, and happy Women's Day to everybody. I think there might be several extremes on this. There could be one that it's the woman that is a fragile woman, the woman that may not be able to have a family or have a relationship or be enough. So that's one of the extremes that sometimes we find in women. And also there's this other extreme of this perfectionist. She needs to look good. She needs to have perfect levels, have the latest technology, and to be able to reflect health and to be able to motivate others, which I don't think either of them are okay. I think women can define who they really want to be and what they want to be. But of course, if we've listened, and we're going to listen in this panel, it depends on where you're born. It depends on how your family raised you. It depends on your the amount, the socioeconomic status, the access that you have to healthcare. So it's not just black and white. It's not just like you can do it because you're a woman and you're strong. It depends on a lot of factors on your surroundings. So I feel like that's why it's important for women that are listening to this, and even men that can advocate for us, to be able to increase the numbers of women advocates, to be able to change this reality, because we're not there yet. I think even more, and outside diabetes, if you live with a chronic health care condition, there's this stigma of you're not enough.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's really interesting. Thank you, Paula. Thank you for putting that so eloquently. We'll discuss more, I think, a little bit about female advocacy and advocacy for women with diabetes. But I just wanted to get into one thing, and this was a question from the audience, because one of the ways that it might be a struggle to be a woman with diabetes is also medically, right? There are things that differ between, you know, a man with diabetes and a woman with diabetes, including the ways that hormones affect your body, including the risk of eating disorders. We already know that eating disorders it's more common in women as such, and it's also much more common in people with diabetes than it is in the general population. And this question from the audience was, or it's a point, I think, discussion point. One of the challenges is to find a female healthcare professional / endocrinologist for diabetes discussions related to being a woman in terms of menstruation, pregnancy, and impact on breastfeeding with diabetes. I know this is spontaneous thought, but any reflections on this, that the more healthcare aspects of being a woman with diabetes?
I think that I can say that also part of advocacy as ourselves, people with diabetes, is to advocate to healthcare professionals. Like we feel that we can just advocate about empowering, you can do it with diabetes, but also a great area that you can work on is in other healthcare professionals sharing your story. How does it really feels to have your period when you have type 1 diabetes. It's not just your mood changes, it's your glucose level changes that also is going to affect your mood. And also, I've been thinking about the importance of networking with other advocates, like what we're doing here and what you're listening to us. I know this person that has gone through pregnancy and she got an amazing health professional too. Can you speak to her to receive that motivation of, yes, it's possible? And then probably that's the way that you can start connecting. And that's the power of advocacy, because you can know other people that are going through different situations that probably you're not dealing with. And but I think it is a really important point, and we need to do a lot of work with healthcare professionals to understand and be able to put themselves in our feet.
Yeah, exactly. I think, Joe, you mentioned that Sana was one of those people to you. And I think it's a dual thing, just like you say, Paula. We need to work on this on an advocacy level, right? But on a practical level, I mean, I know I experienced that as well. The effect of hormones on your body. It's not something that I ever discussed with my endocrinologist, but it was something when I started talking, just like you say, talking to my female peers, right? Talking to my fellow diabetes advocates. It really, that is what opened up my eyes to the effects of it. And that's what taught me more about it and encouraged me to learn more about it. So I completely agree. It's a tricky path. But I think it's also
little information about this. There's so little information about this. Yeah. Even if you try to search for written resources on the fact how diabetes will affect your menstrual periods or even breastfeeding. I remember during my time with my children, every time I fed them, I would go low, and it was not just not written anywhere. What am I supposed to do with it? I was at a loss, and my doctor, unless I go and ask the doctor and they find out some resources to help me, I think that's a huge area that needs work. That information needs to come into these areas, these small things that affect a woman or come into the play in life of a woman with diabetes, and that's something that needs to some work on. Yeah.
I completely agree, and increased research as well on these issues specific to women with diabetes, for sure. I'm going to see here, we have a question. I'm reading as I go. Right, okay, so this person from the audience is asking, as a woman, I would like to ask the panel their thoughts on education in diabetes in regards to women's health or lack thereof, and if they consider this has an impact not only on the physical health, but also on the mental health due to lack of proper education on this particular subject in the region. So this relates to this. Nurian, or Joe, is this something that you would like to answer? I mean, I think this also goes into your area of mental health as well.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's very well stated that, we have lack of, physical health education. We do not have any programs, any health related programs that tell you how you need to, live your life, how you need to change your lifestyle, and what are the things that you need to take care of. You kind of prevent type 2 diabetes. And if you are living with type 1 diabetes, what are the things that you need to take care of for the best management, let alone, talking about mental health aspect. A lot of women who face a lot of different issues. We are handling multiple things, especially with COVID. We have seen that, it has become even more difficult for us to manage household, work life, and also managing our diabetes 24/7, which we cannot ignore. So that brings us to the point that it's very important that we give the right kind of importance to, educating people about, bringing up more communities that are trying to bridge that gap, because we know healthcare professionals, especially in India, do not have time. They literally give you 5 minutes of their time and they just tackle, some of the issues. And I haven't had an experience of speaking to any healthcare professional in India about all of these issues, whether it is women health, whether it is periods, whether it is sexual health, which is also very important, because there are lots of women who have a lot of questions when they get married, and they do not have the right support. They do not know who they need to contact or reach out to for all of these questions, especially because of the taboo, especially because of the stigma and discrimination. They have the fear of disclosing about their diabetes. A lot of women don't disclose about their diabetes to their partners, let alone speaking about sexual health and other issues. And definitely it impacts their mental health. Definitely these societal pressures leaves a very negative impact. And just because they do not know a way to let out of those emotions, because they keep it inside, they hide their condition, they hide whatever they're going through, to. They hide their challenges, their pain, and they keep it as a secret. And that fear, embarrassment, and lack of knowledge and awareness, definitely it leaves a negative imprint on their lives, and it impacts their diabetes management and also their personal lives on a large scale.
Yeah,
So,
I completely agree.
Yeah, so we definitely need a lot of, NGOs, communities, and healthcare, professionals coming up with more programs or something to deal with this issue, so that we have kind of a women group where they can talk to each other freely about these topics without the fear of judgment and without the fear that what will people think. So that can really change the whole scenario.
Thank you. Well said. I think it's obviously, being from Sweden, we have a lot of privileges with diabetes care and societal acceptance, obviously, that are not found everywhere. But even in a country like Sweden, there is so much stigma as well with diabetes. And just like you say, hiding it from, I know people that hide their diabetes from their partners just because they're afraid of the reaction, right? And the prejudice and the stigma that's associated with diabetes. So I think it's definitely a global issue for sure, even though, I know that we are privileged in so many ways, but in terms of stigma, it's definitely prevalent all over, for sure. I wanted to get into a little bit about the advocacy part as well, because like we all know, not least after this discussion, you guys are such powerful and eloquent advocates, and I wanted to hear your thoughts on this. I thought, considering the context of this being also the 10-year anniversary of YLD, I wanted to hear, how has the YLD program, or what has it meant for you as advocates, as female advocates? Nurian, you're still pretty new in the program. Would you like to reflect on this?
Yes, of course. I joined YLD in 2019. My first biggest experience, and it was amazing, was in Busan. That's where I met Joe. And it was eye-opening, I must say. It was eye-opening because I didn't know a lot of people that had type 1 diabetes. Some people online, on social media, but I'd never had that personal contact. And to hear the stories and understand how living with diabetes is, I really understood two things. One thing is that as soon as you start with advocacy, you never end. There's always innovation and change to be done, depending on your environment, where you come from, what you see, and how you identify living with diabetes for you and for others. And the second thing is that we women, as women as well, we always have something to work on, and we are built to fight and change things. And I think we come here with a mission. Doesn't matter what the mission is, could be motherhood, could be a professional mission, could be advocacy, changing something socially. And that's how I feel about being a female advocate. And really, people think of advocacy as about changing things right away. It's not about changing things right away. It's about changing things for the better and sustainably. And that's why Young Leader in Diabetes program is so important, because it's about the sustainability of education, how we spread awareness, and how we influence other people to continue with the advocacy and the information, especially the part of education and being together. It's a community. It's, I would dare to say, a family, and should keep going, definitely.
Well said. I can't do a reaction on Zoom, but I'll do this. Sana, as an expert, as a long-term partner of the YLD program and one of the original YLDs, do you have any reflections on what the program has meant to you?
So, Kaya, before joining the program, I had no idea that a person with diabetes, whether a man or a woman, a person with diabetes matters in the diabetes world. I always thought it's all about healthcare professionals and science and data and everything. Yes, it is. There's no doubt about it. But I never knew that a story could matter, or someone's experiences could matter as well. So that's what YLD program brought into my life. I do think that as young leaders, so many women in the Young Leaders program, there are some years, and specifically, again, we'll talk about culture. In some cultures, women are expected to start their family lives very early. And that's the time when the YLD program also comes in. And that's the time, that's the hardest part of their lives. They're getting married, they're having children, they're adjusting into new families, into a new life. And that's that's the time that they actually need a lot of support, a lot of mentoring, a lot of gentle nudge and push to keep going, because things do ease out, and at the end of the tunnel there's still light, because that's what the YD program has meant to me. It kept pushing me, it kept telling me to do more and more, till the time that my kids were old enough for me to go with full force into my work.
Amazing, thank you. Paula, any thoughts? Oh, sorry, Joe, go ahead. Go ahead.
I would just like to add that, we all have that zeal and spark in us while living with diabetes, because we want to help people, we want to do something, make a difference in the community, because this is something that is we are affected with, and we want to, kind of use our own perspectives and lived experiences to help people in whichever way we can. So we all have that, but kind of, being part of this program really helped me. It paved the way for me to kind of think what I want to do in a very structured manner. I absolutely loved how they have those, quarterly reports and everything there that really, kept me motivated. Also, when I said that, I met a lot of different people from different countries in the Busan Summit that gave me so much of inspiration and motivation that I really want to do this. And, it kind of just, it kind of just gave me a lot of, power, I would say, because I was used to feel that, I don't know what I'm going to do, what project I'm going to run. But when I went there and I got the motivation, and also kind of the support that you get when you're part of this program, it absolutely helps you to just kind of fulfill your dream and goals that you have in mind. And it becomes a very easy path with the kind of training and support that you get from everyone. And I think that's why we all are here today. So I really, really am very thankful to this program, and I'm glad that I'm part of it.
Thank you for sharing that. Paula, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think going to the program opened my eyes, as you all said. I previously, before going to the program, I was able to travel to different countries, but never being able to see how's living with diabetes in so many countries. And that was like amazing. And also to be able to think that, okay, you're going to go back to your country and do a project. My project was in school. So you were able to think, okay, I can ask this and this and this person, which have done the same thing in the other side of the world, to ask for advice. And that was amazing. And also have this thought of, okay, we can work together in something. I realized that Costa Rica has similar, women face similar issues than people from Aruba. So we can work together on something, we can change lives, and joining all of those amazing brains of all those people that attended the program in the 2 times I went is just so motivating and encouraging. So I think it changed your life.
I completely agree. So this is a question I meant to ask, and we also got a similar question from the audience. So basically, what's the advice that you would give to women with diabetes who'd like to become advocates? And the question from the audience was also, how can we help promote these amazing opportunities to advocates from different countries to have more representation? And feel free to just speak.
Well, my advice to women who want to advocate would be to, well, of course, number one is to be trained with, for example, the IDF Young Leaders program. You can follow IDF social media for that, with the announcements and everything. There are other programs as well. However, what I think as a person, as a woman living with diabetes, and a woman who has practiced advocacy for the last 10 years, a very personal advice would be to keep going slow but steady, because at times we want to, as Nurian was saying, we think that everything will change overnight, but that doesn't happen. And diabetes, the advocacy burnout is real. But yeah, go slow. Your life is also very important. Keep taking that along with you, and change will happen, but of course it will happen slowly.
Yeah. So. Thank you, Sana. Paula, I saw that you had your hand up.
Yeah, I think it's important today to start from what is advocacy, and it's really like giving voice to people that don't have a voice. So I would start with the people around you, your community, your country. I feel that we need to talk about social media today and how overwhelming it can be for mostly women. So I think I started some time ago with social media and sharing my life with diabetes, and I definitely maybe I'm going through advocacy burnout because I don't feel like I just need to share stuff in social media. I can be an advocate in my work. I can be an advocate in my house. So you don't need to think that you need to have the latest technology, look perfect, or have done a lot of work in diabetes to be able to jump to that and call yourself an advocate. And I think you need to say it aloud. I'm an advocate because I want to talk about these issues that women in my community are dealing with. And even if it's a small group of people, you can say, I want to give these people a voice. And I can go to my government, I can go to my work, you can do a lot of different ways of advocacy. So don't think it's just in social media, and don't think that you need to not be yourself. I think I would say for women that want to be advocates, be fully yourself, because your story has the power to encourage their people. And even though you feel like you're by yourself, that you're alone, that no one else is dealing what you're dealing with, your story can change lives. Okay, so I think we need to understand that diabetes is so different for everyone, and so your story could be similar to another person.
I completely agree. And I think what you're saying as well, I think online advocacy is extremely powerful and it has huge potential, but it's one of many ways to advocate, just like you say, Paula. And there are so many things that are happening sort of in the background quietly that are not necessarily as noticeable or as flashy, but that are hugely important as well. So I completely agree with you, Paula. And I think it's
the greatest example is Sana itself.
Yeah. Sorry, what's that?
I think the greatest example is Sana.
Yeah, exactly. Sana's a great example of that. All you guys here are great examples of that. And in addition to being very visible, you also do so much work that can't be seen, that is just as powerful and just as meaningful. I think some of the things that I've learned, so you learn, obviously, as you advocate, you grow, right? And I think my takeaways or my advice would be, just like we always say, right? Be confident in what you know. And you guys mentioned this as well. You guys are the experts of living life with diabetes, being a woman with diabetes, living your life with diabetes. But I think it's important to remember in that as well, to realize that, yes, you are an expert on your life with diabetes, but if you want to advocate on on behalf of people that don't have a voice, or on behalf of the community, you need to educate yourself on what the community wants, right? What the community needs. And I think that what Sana mentioned in the beginning about data-driven advocacy and the guide that IDF has given out is a great place to start, right? If you in some way want to be, I don't want to say representative, but if you want to be a part of the community and work with the community, you need to realize what they want, right? I think that's hugely important. And that doesn't mean that your story is any less important, but it means that, there's also power in being able to say, I'm one of many people. I'm not the only one that feels this way, or the only one that experiences this. And you guys are great examples of that. And I think reaching out to people like yourself, I think it's a great way to go if you want to become an advocate, to learn from the people that have gone before, right? There's so much that's happened in the past decades in terms of advocacy, and for female advocates as well. So I think reaching out to those that have helped pave the way, I think is a good way to go. And I don't know if you agree with this, but I think my advice, and this is to women, this is to everyone with diabetes, but to women with diabetes specifically, and that is, don't be afraid to speak up. Don't feel like what you have to say is any less important than what anyone else has to say, or a man has to say, to be honest. Because so many times, and I include myself in this, I see women starting, their sentences with saying, I'm sorry, but, or this might be a stupid question, or this might not be, or I might have misunderstood something. And I do that myself unknowingly. I make myself smaller than I am, right? And I apologize in advance for something that might not even be, that's probably, to be honest, a good thing to say, right? So that's really my advice. Don't make yourself smaller than what you are, because like you guys said, your voice matters. So that's definitely what I've learned in the past 10 years, learned the hard way. I'm wondering if you've ever As a female advocate, not just a woman with diabetes, but as a female advocate, have you ever encountered any obstacles or people that have tried to maybe push you back or try to diminish you? Is that something, and you're nodding?
Well, I think that many times this happens when people are not fully aware of how you live your life with diabetes. Everybody, every single person lives their lives with diabetes differently. There's no two Joes, two Sanas, two Paulas. It doesn't work like that. So to me, it's very important to set those boundaries and to really state clearly and speak up. This is how I live my life. This is what is good for me. This is what is not good for me. And sometimes there's no clear boundary about where's that red line and the line you can cross or not. And in family, I have experienced many times. Because people see me, I keep going or I'm not going. People assume things that are not the case. And in my case, I felt left out many times. I must say, close environment, because I have diabetes, I'm not told certain things. I am not told about bad news, for example, or when there's grief, I don't always have the space to grieve or to mourn because I have diabetes. And what I have to say is that I always say this: diabetes is a great part of your life, but it's not everything that you are. You're much more than living your life with diabetes. You're the professional, you're the student, you're the advocate, you're the woman in general. And people need to see through you and see who you are as a person. And the reason why you're here, your purpose. And absolutely, that's something that I still struggle with, because sometimes you need to remind people about, hey, you know what, this is too much or this is not acceptable. And it's very hard to set boundaries, and I'm still learning to do that. I'm 27 and I still can't really clearly set boundaries all the time. And I apologize. And I think that I'm not doing things right. And sometimes I blame myself for things, but that shouldn't be the case. You are who you are, and we have to appreciate ourselves, especially women, for who we are and who we want to become, because we're all here to grow and achieve those goals.
Agree. Amen. I think what you say as well, you know, we're not only people with diabetes. I think that connects as well to both what Sana and Paula were saying before. You know, with advocacy burnout, it's a real thing, and we're not only advocates. And I think you, Paula, said as well that maybe you're not comfortable online always being the diabetes advocate. I think that's really important as well to remember. There's not a prepaid package that you sign up for when you're an advocate, right? There are certain expectations, of course, you know, be respectful and all of that, obviously, but there are some things that I think we internalize and think we have to do that are not necessarily part of being an advocate. I less and less so, I share things online because I'm not necessarily comfortable being a diabetes advocate online all the time. And that's fine. I mean, that's something that I've struggled with, and I felt bad. You know, I feel bad that I'm not sharing all these initiatives, but instead what I do is that I write to people, I write direct messages and I say, hey, I think this would be interesting for you. This is something that I think you might be a good fit for, or whatever it is. And I think that's fine as well. I think it's a part of living sustainably and of advocating sustainably as well. Paula, have you do you encounter any obstacles as a female advocate?
Okay, so I think is those thoughts of lack of self-confidence. This is something that I need to worry, as Norian said, like you still need to work on things, like you still have a long way to go on different things that you motivate others not to do. But I think it's that part of self-confidence that you may be thinking, and that what you said resonate a lot with me, like, sorry, but I think they might be stupid, but so that the part of, oh, what I'm gonna say, would I say it okay? And even more so I think this is something that also we need to work on, about that everything is in English. I'm from a Spanish speaking country, and sometimes I'm like, oh, did I say that okay? Or and that's something that maybe not just women but everyone may face. But as women, is that a lot of like how you look, how you say things, would you sound really harsh, would you sound really weak? So all of these thoughts, I think, is something that women may be dealing with, and there's nothing better than have women around you that can tell you. And I have an amazing friend that is here listening today, and she's that person that tells you, no, you're amazing, and you need that. And that's nothing better than someone that also lives with diabetes. So yeah, I think that's one of the main obstacles that we may face.
I completely agree. I think it's interesting as well. I mean, one of the things that I've noticed is, I think it's both as when I was younger, I'm 32 now, so I'm not that young anymore, but when I was younger, and I think it's a combination of being a woman as well, that, starting my advocacy and, starting in maybe established organizations where often there are incredibly seasoned and experienced people on boards or in working groups, et cetera, et cetera. In the beginning, I was very encouraged to speak up, and I felt empowered. But I noticed that sort of as I grew stronger and as I grew more confident, it was less welcome, right? And I hope I still was respectful. I hope that wasn't the issue, but I just noticed that maybe they started to feel a little threatened as well, that maybe they had nourished a youth advocate that had gotten a little bit too strong, right? And all of a sudden it wasn't as welcomed anymore. And I was sort of pushed down a little bit, and I was sort of made to feel like, well, don't think that you're anything special, or don't think that you're as good as we are, or that you have experience that we have. And that to me was very discouraging, especially coming from people that had, previously been very encouraging. I don't know if you guys have noticed, or if you guys have experienced anything like that.
That's very interesting, Kaja. But this is an interesting topic, and there has been some discussion amongst the Diabetes Advocates Network over this issue. I really do not understand this. I'll pose this question to all of you, because whatever we do it for people with diabetes, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I have no personal interest in pasting my face everywhere. I have no personal interest in giving my days, my nights, my weekends, my family time to this cause for nothing in return. What am I doing it for? I'm doing it for the community.
Yeah.
And I would only hope to be supported and to be guided if there's something that is felt to be wrong, to be guided, of course, because there can be things which, for example, maybe I am looking at from my perspective, and that may not be the entire truth. But when this kind of feeling comes in that you're not so welcome anymore, or you're maybe something that you said did not settle in so well with the others who may be at more powerful positions or something like that, that does discourage you. But I think in the end, we all need to keep telling ourselves that I'm doing this for the community, I'm doing this for a better world for people with diabetes, and I'll continue doing no matter what anyone else feels about it.
I agree. Nurian, you have your virtual hand up.
Yes. I think this is where the importance of education and continuous education comes in, because we as advocates, we also have some work to do ourselves. And many times, the more prepared and aware we are of our behavior and our thoughts, the better it is for others that we help. And I like that Sana mentioned and that you mentioned this, because on social media, sometimes you think or you can perceive that there's some competition, for example. But advocacy is not a competition. Life is not a race, it's a journey. And we don't necessarily have to be on the same path, but the destination is the same. We all want to make a change. We all want to help others. And it doesn't matter where you're standing, it matters where you're going and that you're keep moving forward. So it's important to take a look on the inside. And this is just a personal advice. I do it myself all the time. And I think about, what do I want to do? Why am I doing this? How am I going to create a good impact? And if you feel that you have to step back for a minute or for a while from social media, from advocacy, that's okay. Avoid the burnout. And when you're centered, get back into it, and to avoid these uncomfortable situations that you experienced, Kesa, sorry, because I think that when we lose sight or deviate from our goal or where we want to go, these things happen. And I strongly advocate for education all the time. Thank you for sharing that, Kesa. I think it's a very important point.
Thank you. Paula, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I also feel like it's really important to clear and make yourself clear of what's your intention, why do you want to do something, what's the reason behind what you want to start doing, because if you don't have that clear, maybe then it's really easy to lose the track or go in other paths and that make you feel like you're lost or that you're not being successful as an advocate. And another thing that is always in my mind when I'm going to do any activity, when I was doing the camps and everything, even if it's one person that you impact, that's valuable enough. So you may, when you start advocating, you may start seeing just 2 people coming to your events, or just 2 people liking your post, and you spend hours doing that post. You're so excited about sharing that, but just 2 people. Even if it's that people that were impacted by what you're doing, that's important enough. So I think this is something that you need to have if you're starting, and even if you have years doing it and you feel like you're losing your skills to advocate, no, you're still impacting, even though you don't see it in numbers or in people's faces. So yeah.
Joe.
I love where this discussion is going, and I think all the points that have been raised are absolutely amazing and very, very, thought-provoking. Definitely, it's something that needs to be, like, every advocates need to look into, because I think now we have created a kind of picture over the social media of how a diabetes advocate needs to be, and there's no tag or a label, and there's no diabetes hero as such. That kind of is present, it should be present in our community, I would say. And I think that needs to really change of how we see people living with diabetes who wants to advocate. And I think everyone who really wants to start the advocacy journey, it's very important to be self-motivated. You cannot deter from the fact why you started. You cannot get lost in that fame game, or get lost with having the popularity or being invited to events and all of that. That's not why you started. Even if you're making an impact, even if it's a very small impact, even if you're changing a life of someone who's living right next door, that's advocacy, and that's what matters, and that's what you need to do. Coming on events, doing all of these things really doesn't matter. And I think that's what that really people should know, because I've seen a lot of young kids who are coming up to me and who have a totally different definition of advocacy and what they want to be and why they want to join Wildly program. So I think it needs to be very clear, and you need to be self-motivated that, okay, this is something that I'm very passionate about, and I really want to put my 100% into it. And also, while taking care of yourself, you're not advocating for yourself, you cannot do it for others. I have seen people, who have really bad diabetes management, who are not taking care of their mental well-being, but they're just trying to, post every day on social media just because they have to, and it has become kind of a job for them. Please do not do that. Take care of self. Your mental health, your well-being is much more important, and everything comes later on. Do not really worry about what people will say and what is their perception of you. Just remember your health, your mental well-being before anything else. And that's the first thing that you need to learn before getting into the advocacy journey. And that's the only way to prevent diabetes advocacy burnout as well.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that, Joe. That's a powerful message. You say it very eloquently. Thank you. I wanted to ask you guys what you think the diabetes community as a whole can do to support female advocates. What would you like to see from the community? It's a tricky question. I think, Sana, go ahead.
I think it's a tricky one. Yeah, I think more acceptance, and of course it will come with time and more of us standing up and speaking up for us. And like, for example, I've seen in Pakistan, I was the first one to come out in the open and say that I have diabetes, and then people start joining. That it takes time to normalize. It has taken me almost a decade to reach the point. But yeah, I think that's what I want to see from the community, to help normalize the fact that people can have diabetes and people can still live good life. And not everyone needs to be an advocate. Not everyone needs to put on social media that they are doing okay. Not not the diabetes advocate, as we have been saying so many times along, that the diabetes advocate does not need to be perfect in blood sugar management. I can have my bad days, and it's okay to share those bad days on social media as well, and not just the good days, because that's what will normalize things. Otherwise I may become a figure. If I don't share my bad days, I may just become a figure of perfection, which nobody can hope to achieve. And I know at the bottom of my heart, I'm not. So normalizing things for people, even if they want to become advocates, is something that I want.
Thank you, Sana. That's powerful. Thank you for sharing that. Dorian.
I absolutely love what Sana said, because I was thinking that the advocacy community does a lot for us, and there's much more that we can do, and we keep going forward every day. But I think something that we should keep doing is having uncomfortable conversations. It opens our eyes, and often change follows. And sometimes when you're at that uncomfortable place, you're going to see the true situation or circumstance you are in, maybe not yours or from other people. And then you start thinking about how you're going to make that change. And we had some uncomfortable conversations today about competition, about boundaries, about feeling small or not having the space. And having the space will create that openness to have those conversations that we should have, and not be an example of perfection, but an example of resilience instead.
Thank you. I think I completely agree with what you guys have said. And I think I just want to add something concrete as well, that I think to help support female advocates and female leaders is something like the YLD program and other similar initiatives to support female leadership, and to embrace that leadership can look very differently, right? There's not just one path, one way of being a leader, right? I think programs like this, programs like the YLD program that encourage leadership, that empower leaders, and that empowers or that encourages strong advocacy from a young age, I think is a good example as well. There was a question from Dani in the audience. She asked, she would like to know if at any point, as women living with diabetes and as advocates, we've seen or we've met any tokenism when it comes to advocacy from our community. And tokenism, we can say, if it's not a familiar term, it's where you're maybe asked to be part of something just because, right? Not necessarily because someone thinks you would add value, but because it's a way to check off the list. You know, you're supposed to have a woman there, you're supposed to have an advocate there, and so we've checked it off the list. Anyone want to reflect on that? Silence.
Well, that's a difficult question. Difficult question. I would say many times. Many times. As a youth advocate, as a person with diabetes, and as a woman, for sure. It's I don't want to mention specific, times, but yeah, I've definitely met that, and I think if you have the opportunity, if you have that within you to maybe mention something, I usually ask, if I'm asked to be a part of something, I usually ask, are there more people with diabetes involved? Am I going to be the only representative of the diabetes community? Am I going to be the only woman, et cetera, et cetera? What are you guys' thoughts? I think you guys have met this as well, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, plus being recognized for the expertise that you're bringing in, and to be recognized and valued for the time that you're giving to that thing is something that probably is not thought before the advocate is invited. Well, there have been some, I wouldn't say that often happens, but yes, it happens quite a lot. But there are other positive examples to talk about as well. There are many times when the involvement is not just tokenism, and it is really productive and it is really fruitful. So
yeah, I agree. But on to something more positive. I wanted to know, what's your hope for women living with diabetes for the future? What's your hope for female advocates for the future? So it's an easy question, right?
I feel that I think that there must, at a certain point, we shouldn't be explaining ourselves anymore, because we have diabetes indeed, and it's part of who we are. But I shouldn't explain myself, or I shouldn't be longing for acceptance. I think everybody deserves acceptance, and I'm going back to what Joe said at the beginning. We tend to apologize. We tend to blame ourselves and make ourselves smaller. But acceptance is not something that we should long for. It's something that comes with awareness and respect. That's something that I really, really, really would love to see from everybody in the community in general. And this counts for all conditions, not only diabetes, but life in general. That's the feeling that I have about it.
Thank you. Joe, what are your thoughts? What are your hopes for
I
women
would just
with
add to
diabetes?
that, I think being born a woman is a blessing, and it brings a lot, a lot of resilience and strength. And we have seen in our lives, the way we handle multiple things, we wear multiple hats, and we do so many things with so much poise and grace. And, even if we are living with a lot of challenges, a lot of pain, we know how to handle that, and we take life head on. And I think that's the power of women. And in spite of wearing those multiple hats, in spite of having those responsibilities and a burden on our lives, sometimes what this male dominated world thinks that all of this is part of our life. And I really want to change that. I really want to change that notion that because we are women, so we have to do all of this, and this is just a part of our life and how women should be. I think this notion needs to change. Okay, we can also be vulnerable. We could also have bad days where we don't want to do anything, and where just we want to just lie down and just kind of Netflix and chill. And I really want that notion to happen. I really want women to break free, to feel comfortable and confident with themselves, to advocate for themselves, especially women who are living with diabetes. Be confident, be comfortable with your condition, accept it wholeheartedly. And it's not important to be an advocate if you don't want to be, but if you want to be, just giving your full passion into it, and just see how the world will change for you, and just see how this condition will become a blessing for you. And this will also help you to tackle all those societal pressures, the mental health challenges and everything that surrounds you, because your mission will be one thing: to help people with any kind of diabetes. And you will not focus on the stigma, the judgments, and anything that is happening around you. And that can really change the course of your life and how you live with it.
Agree completely. Well said. Sana, what are your thoughts? What are your hopes?
So when you said this is an easy question, right? I was thinking of some vision statement. Well, and the vision statement is that I hope for a day that we won't have to advocate, because I think advocacy is hard in itself, and it is needed because things are hard. Life is hard. I just hope that one day women with diabetes would be able to be themselves, say what they want to say they speak their minds out, well, of course, with respect. But at the same time, I also hope that there will be good medical care available to all women with diabetes. They would be supported with what they need in terms of diabetes education, in terms of consultation, in terms of all the supplies that they require. But most of it, I just hope that, one day we'll have to stop having to advocate for so many grassroots level causes.
Yeah, I completely agree. Paula, what are your hopes?
I think my hopes are really equal access to healthcare for women, because as we were saying at the beginning, all the different physiological aspects that include being a woman, that makes it much harder in a lot of ways. And I feel that I hope for a day that we can think about things such as having a family, or dealing with different situations with equal access. And also I hope for the day that we can stop hiding and be our full true selves, be able to share who we are, completely 100% without stop hiding and stop hiding diabetes, which is just a part of us. It doesn't define us. So yeah. And I also was going to say that I feel that women have a lot of different characteristics. We're created completely different than men, and I don't feel we should be exactly equal, but probably complementary. And I feel with diabetes and advocacy and everything, if we're able to put our true skills as women that we were created with, I mean, we could do wonders more than we're doing at the moment. So yeah, just being able to use all of those stuff that we were created for.
Thank you, guys. I mean, I don't know how to follow that. I don't know how to close this up. I mean, you've said it all. I think if I can share my hope for the future, in addition to what you've all said, and I think especially you mentioned as well, the importance of access, right? But I wanted to share something actually that you, Joe, shared this morning. You shared a quote from, and I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly. I think I pronounce it Rupi Kaur. She's a very famous Indian Canadian poet / author. And the quote was, "What is the greatest lesson a woman can learn? That since day one, she's already had everything she needs within herself. It's the world that convinced her that she did not." And I think that's such a powerful quote. And it really shows that it's society that needs to change. It's not you. Yes, we advocate for change, and in doing so, we hope that society will change, but we are good enough as women with diabetes, as female advocates, we are good enough. We do not need to change who we are, how we act, how we do things. We do not need to be more like men. We need to have the courage to be ourselves and to be our whole selves. So I hope that women moving forward will feel that it's not something wrong with them. It's the society that we live in that is telling us that we're wrong. So thank you, everyone. I mean, I wish we could continue. I really do. I hope to see everyone face to face soon, please. I want to thank you, everyone, for participating. Joe, Nuria, and Sana, Paula, you guys are incredible advocates. I love you as people. I love you as advocates. And also thank you so much to Bruno and Bia and the team at IDF for hosting this. Sana, over to you.
Thank you so much, Caitlin. Thank you so much, Paula, Joe, and Nurian. This was powerful. I truly enjoyed the discussion. Thank you, everyone, for joining us at this webinar. And I encourage you once again, for those of you who might have joined late, to download and share the IDF Guide to Data-Driven Advocacy from the website shown here on the slide, which will be emailed to you as well later on. A link, of course, to the webinar recording, along with the link to download the Data-Driven Advocacy Guide will be sent to all the attendees. Please help us improve future online events by responding to the feedback questionnaire, and you may send any questions to advocacy@idf.org. Thank you to the team behind the scenes, Bruno, Bia, for arranging this, and to everyone, to the panelists and everyone for joining us today. Thank you.